One Piece chapter 1085 was absolutely insane. The fact that we're getting Imu's abilities here and the Gorosei showing their true powers is honestly something that doesn't feel real yet. It hasn't hit me completely because these are characters that have been theorized for hundreds and hundreds of chapters of build up, and the fact that we're getting those reveals here is honestly insane, and it doesn't feel real at all because we speculate about them all the time, and there's thousands of theories about what their powers are. Do they have devil fruit? Do they have haki? All of these things, and now that is all coming into fruition in the actual story. So this is definitely a monumental chapter in the history of One Piece. The Gorosei and even Imu-sama getting a hint at their ability and power, and I believe this will change some people's perspective on the Gorosei and the war government as a whole, because some people actually believe that these guys were not fighters or they weren't powerful. But again, that doesn't seem to be the case because they seem to be powerful. Now, how powerful, we're not sure, but they hold some unknown power, and a power I'd like to believe are very powerful in nature. But we'll talk more about that later on. Now, before we keep going, guys, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video. Let's go for 500 likes for this amazing chapter. Subscribe if you're new here, and hit the bell if you want to get notified for more content on this channel. Now, let's start from the beginning. Now, after gazing upon the sight of Imu, Cobra at this point in time knew that his fate was sealed because they were not gonna let him leave alive. And of course, Cobra, knowing this, chose to reveal everything that he knows, given that these were gonna be his last moments. Because it would seem that the world government aren't actually all-knowing, and it seems like there's information that they themselves are not aware of things that happened in the past. And the Nefertari family is one of those things. Now, one of the more interesting things that Cobra talked about here was that Imu was actually a part of one of the first 20 kings that built the world government. So in a sense, that also makes Imu a celestial dragon as well, but it seems like there's something special about he or she because she has authority above the others. Now, we know that there's hierarchy within the celestial dragon system, especially with the introduction of the God's Knight, and we know that the Gorosei are also called the highest ranking celestial dragons. So there is a hierarchy system here, but Imu is a bit special than the others, in which there's something that this person holds that is crucial and makes them the head of all these families. Now, as to what that is, we don't know. It could be a national treasure, it could be Imu themselves, or it could be that Imu was the leading figure in leading the war against the D family or the ancient kingdom, and that's why they have that much power and authority over the other families. And there's clearly something that's divine about him or her as well. And you also have to look at it from a history perspective. The fact that the world government was able to beat the ancient kingdom, a kingdom which we know was the pinnacle of strength and power at that point in time, a kingdom that is very similar to what Vegapunk is cultivating on Egghead, and even then he's not at their level of what they accomplished, right? We're speaking of devil fruit manipulation, clones, more than likely the creation of the 3 ancient weapons. Like, the power that the ancient kingdom had was probably unrivaled, but for some reason Imu and the world government were able to defeat this great kingdom in some way, shape, or form. And again, this was before the world government was even created and before the Marines were actually a thing. So they were fighting the ancient kingdom, those 20 families, by themselves. So I would like to believe that they had some power of their own that could rival the ancient kingdom, and Imu might have been the source of all of that. So Imu might actually be the person to have actually defeated Joy Boy in an actual battle. Now, Imu does confirm that the D is the moniker of their ancient enemy, which is referring to the D clan, and of course more than likely that the D clan were the citizens of the ancient kingdom. And Imu states that the only reason why the D name is still relevant in today's time is because of Queen Lily's grave blunder that happened 800 years ago. And that blunder was the poneglyphs, because apparently they were scattered all throughout the world at that point in time, more than likely for the war government to not have the ability to hide all the knowledge that existed so far. because if they did, there's a possibility that they might have won indefinitely. But because of what happened so far, we're seeing that pirates are starting to realize that there's more to history. I also think that Kumo's devil fruit might have played a role here, just because of what he did to the Straw Hats. Maybe there was someone like him 800 years ago who had this ability and did the same thing to all the relics or the poneglyphs at that point in time. And Imu actually questions this whole thing, because Imu actually believes that it's more than likely not a mistake and was actually a part of some larger plan. And it seems to be leaning more on the latter, just because we learned the true name of the Nefertari family. And it turns out that the Nefertari family were a part of the D clan. So in some way, shape, or form, they were able to infiltrate the war government. Now, this story could be a lot more complex than what we're saying right now, but as of right now, that's what it seems like, because there could be more things that happen in which they were able to get into the Celestial Dragons, because it's kind of contradictory to have a D clan that was also involved in the creation of the war government. So it makes you wonder, are there actually more D clans within the war government that we're not aware of and that Imu-sama was not aware of? Because it seems like infiltration on both sides may have happened and betrayals may have happened on both sides as well. So I think the Void Century is actually going to be very complex of a story, because I don't think it's as white and black as some people would like to believe, that the war government was just this ultimate evil force, right? I feel like there's a reason why the Nefertari might have joined them in the initial stages, but then when they started to realize what the war government was becoming, she started to switch as well. So the Ancient Kingdom might have been propped up to be very dangerous in nature, and maybe some D clans actually betraying their own country because of what they've become. So I'm actually excited to see what actually happened in the Void Century, because we're getting a clearer picture now as to how things unfolded, because betrayals, infiltration, all those things seem to be a part of it. And where exactly does Joy Boy fit in all of this? A lot of people have theorized that he more than likely was the king of the Ancient Kingdom and could have had relations to Imu-sama themselves, depending on if Imu-sama is actually eternal, which more than likely they are, but we'll see. Now, as Cobra mentioned Queen Lily's full name, we see that Imu gets somewhat angered and attacks Cobra right away, given that these are the enemies of the war government. And one of the attacks is like an arrow that pierces through Cobra, and it sort of gives us a glimpse as to Imu's power and the powers of the Gorosei. Now, Sabo sees all of this and leaps into action and uses a named attack on the Gorosei and Imu. He uses a Fire Fist here, and the attack seemingly does absolutely nothing, as we see Imu actually counteract the attack by eating the flame. Now here it actually looks like she turns into a giant beast of shadows and like just bites the flames. And the same happens with the Gorosei as well. They also turn into giant creatures, but since they're silhouettes, we can't really see them. And I've got to say that this whole section of this chapter didn't feel real, and it almost felt like a different series I was reading here. This is definitely one of those moments in One Piece where you don't feel like this belongs inside One Piece. But again, here we are getting all these crazy reveals here. And I feel like part of it is due to the longevity of how these things have been hitting for the entire course of the story. And so them getting revealed here is definitely a shocker. But based on what we're seeing from all of these panels with the Gorosei and Imu transforming, it does seem like they have devil fruit abilities, and devil fruit abilities that are more than likely mythical Zoans, god type fruits, like Luffy's ability, right? They more likely have the god fruits. And again, since these guys have been in power for 800 years, it wouldn't be surprising that they've stockpiled all the top tier devil fruits in history and used it for themselves. And this could be the reason as to why the admirals have OP abilities, all Logias, right? So it's looking like they all have mythicals. And from the silhouettes, even though you couldn't necessarily see them, you could see their shape. And from what it looks like, one of them has a bird mythical, one of them has a bull mythical. Now we're not sure, but we see horns. And the other two, we can't really tell. One of them seemed to have that awakened cloud cloak that Yamato and Luffy have in their awakened forms. and the other one we don't necessarily know what exactly they are. But these definitely seem to be mythical creatures of godlike status, right? And again, one of them is going to be revealed to us very soon when Jay Garcia Saturn eventually makes it to Egghead, because now I don't feel too good about how Luffy and the others are gonna fare, because it seems like this guy is also very powerful, tagging alongside with Kizaru. There's definitely something that's gonna happen to the Straw Hats that's gonna be very bad. And again, we got an indication of that from the narrator. But again, Oda is known for breaking expectations, so we don't necessarily know how that's gonna unfold, but I'm looking more on the negative side for the Straw Hats, especially with this reveal here. But inevitably, this is how Cobra dies. Sabo did try to help him, but that didn't work as they got attacked by one of Imu's arrows, and the arrow essentially pierced through Cobra and hit Sabo, which makes him bleed all over the place. And again, we have to remember that Sabo is a Logia, so the attack went through somehow, right? So are those arrows imbued with Haki? Who knows? We might also have gotten a glimpse of Imu using observation Haki because they sensed that someone was behind the wall. Now there was a peephole and whatnot, but it was way too small to actually see. So again, it might be a combination of Devil Fruit abilities and Haki. Like, these guys seem to be monsters all around. Now Wappo, seeing this, ultimately knew his fate, so all he could do at this point in time was to run away, because they were eventually going to find out and they were going to kill him. So he eats through the walls and eventually makes it to where Vivi and the CP0 were holding her, in which more than likely they escaped together, and that's how they were able to meet up with Morgans later on. Now the flashback isn't over. We don't know what's necessarily going to happen after this, so we might have one more chapter before everything resolves and we go back to present time. But this was an exciting chapter in all facets. We got lore, we got mystery, we got build up, we got power scaling. Like, it had almost everything, and things that we have been waiting for a very long time as well. Like the Gorosei were actually introduced very early on in the story. I believe it was in the 200s, but this is insane. But that is pretty much it for this video, guys. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video. Comment down below what you guys think. Hit the bell if you want to get notified for more content on this channel. Subscribe if you're new here. You can follow me on Twitter at Ferrospace. But it is Pharaoh, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.